This video contains spoilers for Arcane Season 1 and 2. This is a deep dive about Isha. I will break down the role she plays in every scene. At the end, you will gain a deeper understanding of her bond with Jinx and what she really did to her. I'll start by discussing two scenes where Isha interacts directly with Vi. One is when Vi is about to kill Jinx, in episode 3. Vi has been repeating that her sister Powder is gone, there is only Jinx now and she must eliminate her. When she is about to eliminate Jinx, Isha interposes herself between the two. Vi sees this innocent child and immediately stops, and later stops Caitlyn too from harming the child. A child that looks a lot like Powder. And Vi sees how the child and Jinx care about each other's safety. The child shields Jinx with her body, while Jinx tries to push her away from that dangerous spot. This mutual care is evidence for Vi that Jinx is not the heartless monster she forced herself to see. Now she can't fake it anymore. She is forced to see the good that is still present in Jinx. She is forced to see Powder again in her. In episode 5, Vi and Jinx are wrestling. Isha again intervenes to protect Jinx, and Vi punches her by mistake. Then she immediately stops punching Jinx. She realized that she punched an innocent child, very similar to Powder, and very close to Jinx. Not only by wrestling Jinx, she also wrestled Powder. Moreover, this is the second child she punches. The first one was Powder in Season 1, Episode 3, one of her worst mistakes that contributed to transform Powder into Jinx, and probably is one of Vi's biggest mistakes and regrets. So, when Isha appears, Vi sees Powder again while dealing with Jinx. For now, let's say that Isha is a reminder of Powder, while we look at more clues to deepen this picture. We have just talked about Isha's main interactions with Vi. There is another, smaller one that we will discuss later. But who are other characters that Isha interacts with? Well, not many. Other characters acknowledge her presence, but she only communicates with Jinx, and Jinx is the only one who directly addresses her. Jinx is the main bridge of Isha with the rest of the world. She mainly operates in it through her. As if Isha only existed through Jinx. As if, without Jinx, the other characters would struggle acknowledging her, if not being totally incapable of it. As if Isha was a ghost that only Jinx can talk to. I have cheated, there is actually an exception. Singed is the only character other than Jinx who addresses Isha directly. It happens when they are transported to prison. He reassures her that they will not stay there for long. Singed is the character who is obsessed with bringing his daughter back to life, and who is about to summon Vander, who was supposed dead for a long time. It would not surprise me if such a character talked with ghosts. In fact, the most hideous monster Warwick and the cutest kid Isha are extremely similar. They are both connected with the past. Warwick with Vander, Isha with Powder, as we have already showed. By being connected with these past people, they bring them back into the present. They make them alive through them and reach again to Jinx, and for Vander, Vi too. I won't expand much on Warwick as I have already dedicated a video to him. I'll just summarize. Warwick doesn't only represent Vander coming back, but the whole happy family coming back. In fact, by attempting at saving Vander and bringing him back to life, Jinx and Vi get close again and they hope to find their father again. They hope to be able to rebuild their family as it was before. Isha is bringing back Powder to Jinx, because it's the identity she has to reconnect with in order to go back to her past self. The dead past version of herself is the one that can participate to the family she has lost, recreating the situation as it was before Vander died, and before Powder became Jinx. This is why Jinx brings Isha with her and Vi while looking for Warwick. Superficially, it doesn't make sense. She could leave that vulnerable child with Sevika, instead of bringing her with her while actively looking for a wild, lethal monster. But Isha's presence is fundamental, because Powder's presence is fundamental, in order to get along with Vi and in order to find Vander again. Jinx even tells Vi that this could be a do-over, a new attempt at a better result in rescuing Vander than the first try by Vi and Powder back then. Jinx and Isha high-five just before entering the tunnel, causing the sound-reactive fungi to illuminate and reveal the path. Their union inaugurates this mission, and then Isha walks in front of Jinx and Vi, leading them. She even chooses which path to take at a fork. When Warwick shows up, Vi, who recently tried to kill Jinx, and she was still wary of her, immediately switches to protection mode for Jinx and Isha, like she used to do with Powder. And after hesitating a lot, she finally trusts Jinx, seeing in her not only Jinx, but some good too, and succeeds at recognizing Vander too. Jinx and Isha are left in the darkness, looking for the others, until Jinx finds them. She sees Vander, alive again, and Vi, who has trusted her. She sees her family again, and joins them in the hug. Isha is the last one to join the hug, but she joins it in a strange way. As the youngest and most vulnerable participant in the hug, who Vi has just protected and for whom Jinx cares a lot, she should be received more internally into the hug, with Vi and Jinx hugging her. Instead, she is the most external participant, hugging the group from outside, as if she was protecting them and watching over their reunion. Later, at Victor's commune, Isha shows herself particularly protective of Warwick, more than Vi and Jinx. She is the presence of Powder, keeping the dream of the past family alive. Now, why is Jinx reconnecting so cheerfully with Powder after putting so much effort in killing her? I plan on making a video entirely about the evolution of Jinx's identity, because there is a lot to say. Here it is enough to say the identity of Jinx was linked to Silco. Silco was the one trying to liberate his adopted daughter from Powder and transform her into Jinx. Jinx was the daughter, but also the creation of Silco, and his most powerful weapon. Without him, Jinx's identity is nothing. This is why at the beginning of Season 2, after saying the last goodbye to Silco, Jinx wanders without purpose. She calls herself Jinx, but she lost that identity along with Silco. While she is in this situation, Isha falls on her from the sky. This is the exact way in which she starts reconnecting to Powder, not out of her own will, but because the course of event, she happened to lose the identity that was trying to suppress Powder, and now she is left with the remains of Powder as the only thing she can connect with. In Season 1, Jinx struggles with the unwanted identity of Powder still persistent in her. She says, Powder fell down a well. But then in Episode 9, she claims that she can still be either Powder or Jinx. She could not get rid of Powder, while Silco and consequently Jinx were alive and strong. Now she keeps claiming to be Jinx in front of Vi. But later in Episode 4, she says to Isha that she reminds her of Powder, despite previously believing she got rid of her. And she says that Jinx is a past life. She's not that anymore. So Jinx never destroyed Powder to begin with. Now the girl that calls herself Jinx happens to be in a situation in which Powder rises up again in her, because it's the only vestige of an identity she is left with, and because the elements that opposed her are gone. Jinx turns towards Powder because it's the only reference point she has left, and this process is made visually perceptible by introducing Isha. We can understand what happens in Jinx internally by observing how she relates to Isha externally. How is Isha introduced? They meet right in front of a wall covered in posters announcing that Jinx is wanted, and there is a reward if she's captured. Those posters mean that people are looking for Jinx. Jinx, too. She's looking for Jinx, for an identity. Here Isha falls on her from the sky, similarly to how Powder strikes her again out of nowhere. The first thing Isha does is fall. One of the last things Powder did in Season 1, Episode 3, is falling. Powder was falling during the explosion that she detonated, which caused the death of Vander and her family, the hostility and separation of Vi, and the creation of Jinx. Now Isha repeats that fall, giving it a different outcome. Her encounter with Jinx will lead to the rescue of Vander, reconciliation with Vi, rebuilding of their family, and the resurfacing of Powder in Jinx. It's like an alternative timeline becoming reality. What if Powder never became Jinx? What if we started over from where we left a healthy Powder the last time? And this time, Powder is not alone. Isha has a bigger sister, Jinx, protecting her. When Isha meets Jinx, some criminals are chasing after her. Jinx decides to protect her by eliminating the criminals. While Jinx talks with Isha, her gun of all possible onomatopoeia emits a poo that appears written in smoke as P-O-O-W, reminiscent of the name Powder, but also of the nickname Pow Pow, used for her by Vi. And she puts Isha's helmet that she had lost during the fall back on her head. This helmet is the sign of Jinx's role as protective big sister. She often plays with Isha's helmet, pulling it down over her eyes or putting it back on her head after she lost it in the presence of danger, like she did here, or after wrestling with Vi in the tunnel. Isha loses her helmet briefly while running after Jinx, reinforcing the link of this object with Jinx. After this, she will lose her helmet every time Jinx, who includes Powder, is in danger. When Vi is about to kill her, when they are wrestling in the tunnel, and when raging Warwick is approaching to her at Victor's commune. Jinx is Isha's protector, but when Jinx is in danger, it becomes visible on Isha too. Also, Isha doesn't have her helmet while in prison, and while Jinx is experiencing painful consequences of her absence, that we will discuss later. Other than Jinx, another person touches Isha's helmet, Vi, at Victor's commune, after Jinx protected Kate from Rictus, and both were saved by Vander. At this point, Vi arrives with Isha, and the family reunites in close proximity, Vi touching Vander's face and Isha's helmet, indicating that she accepted her and the return of Powder in Jinx as members of the family under her protection. By the way, Isha's helmet and her clothes in general indicate that she is a minor, and Vi and Powder's parents were minors too. By taking care of Isha externally, Jinx also takes care of herself as a young Powder internally, and she knows perfectly what she needs. There are several parallelisms with the traumas Powder suffered as a little child, and which transformed her into Jinx. This time, Jinx is able to protect Isha from them, preserving Powder. While they are playing together, she says that she did not used to do as many nice things with her big sister, Vi, who rather preferred punching things. Among the things Vi punched, there is Powder too, and it was crucial for her transformation into Jinx. Jinx not only doesn't punch Isha, and she runs checking on her when Vi punches her, but she highlights her distance from Vi's punches, even with words. Another parallelism: in Season 1, Vi gave Powder a rabbit doll before almost parting ways with her. Because of other elements that rabbit is linked to, it was a sign of Vi's love and empowering teachings about Powder's peculiarities being strengths. That same rabbit falls down with Powder during the explosion in episode 3, the first explosion that she successfully detonates, and Powder holds that rabbit doll close to her chest while she realizes she just killed her family, before Vice Punch strikes her face and she drops the rabbit. Then she keeps that rabbit while being Jinx. It's a symbol of sisterly love that then degenerated, resulting into Jinx's biggest trauma. Now, in one scene, Jinx is playing with Isha, who wears bunny ears. She is both the rabbit and the sister, two beautiful things Powder used to have, and this time their bond is not corrupted. Another parallelism: Isha is imprisoned. Similarly, Powder was separated by her sister because of an imprisonment too, but at that time she was not able to do anything about it, because she was too young and inexperienced, and anyway she did not know what happened to her sister. But this time Jinx knows, and she is extremely capable, so she is able to free and reunite with her new sister. The last parallelism: like Powder was a vulnerable, isolated child rescued by a criminal and shaped into Jinx, so Jinx rescued the vulnerable Isha and shaped her into Jinx. However, even if the general dynamic is similar, the specific mechanics are very different. First of all, Jinx is not imposing an identity on Isha, or at least not actively, as her imitation of Jinx totally comes from her and her spontaneous admiration. Then, Isha is becoming Jinx only superficially, aesthetically, not internally. I have heard some people comment that Isha internalizes some reckless behavior from Jinx. I agree, but they are not the core behaviors of the criminal identity of Jinx that she had with Silco. Isha does not become murderous, nor mentally unstable, or insensitive to violence. She absorbs more moderate traits from the current, toned down Jinx, who is quite different than the Jinx from season 1. But why does Isha, who is supposed to embody the phantom of Powder, start looking like Jinx? I found different possible explanations. One is that, while Isha starts looking like Jinx externally, Jinx starts looking like Powder internally. So they influence each other in different areas. Another explanation, which could also be a consequence of the first one, is that this is the clearest way to show that they are the same person. They look the same and are the same internally too. They are both Powder, the same package for the same content. Another possible explanation is that in this way Isha's appearance is identical to Jinx, so that it is more evident that what happens to one involves the other one too. As a consequence, by taking care of the powder inside a child with Jinx appearance, Jinx is taking care of the powder inside another Jinx lookalike, herself. So Jinx is taking care of herself. The last explanation I found is that Jinx is giving form to a new her, not just a copy of Jinx, but a new Jinx. By shaping Jinx out of Isha, she's also shaping a new Jinx out of herself. She is rebuilding herself. All these explanations have different nuances, but in the end they all link their similarity to a deeper bond between them, not only superficial, but internal too. However, Jinx doesn't become Powder again immediately. It's an evolution through time. She has been Jinx for a long time, and even if now this identity has no purpose anymore, it doesn't disappear automatically. She needs to indulge into Powder in order to detach from Jinx. Just like before she leaned on Jinx to suppress Powder, now she is doing the opposite. For a long time she stays in her lair with Isha and with Powder, hiding from the world, in which she is still known as Jinx. Sevika tells her that she cannot hide in this fantasy forever, trying to convince her to step out of this comfortable zone or safe space. But Jinx doesn't. It's Isha who goes to the meeting at Vander's statue, and she does an action that screams Powder. She activates a blue flare. When Powder did it in season 1, this was her desperate cry to call her sister to her and an attempt at escaping Jinx. I think it would be a stretch reading Isha's blue smoke as a call to her big sister to drag her out of her lair. However, indirectly, it's what happens. By participating at the meeting at the statue, Isha is imprisoned, prompting Jinx at finally leaving her lair and stepping into the world to rescue her. When Jinx learns that Isha has been robbed from her, the scariest traits of Jinx resurface. Voices in the head, hallucinations, uncontrollable shooting instincts. Without Powder, Silco's Jinx resurfaces again. At this point, Jinx decides to step into the outside world to get Isha and Powder back. By doing this, she is deciding to face her Jinx identity. Not only because that part of her is resurfacing by itself, but also because, as she says while talking to Silco's chair, Jinx as a revolutionary against Piltover was rather a wish coming from Silco, and the outside world still knows her as the old Jinx and wants her to be the hero of the revolution. She faces all these expectations and projected identities, and she plays the part. During the mission at the prison, she joked several times about being Jinx, the rebel hero of Zone, the terrorist of Piltover, that others expect from her. But by how the freed people thank her, she begins to understand that people can perceive her differently too, that she can act in the world as something different than the old Jinx. And this, again, happens thanks to Isha. But everything is not perfect. Yes, Jinx is overcoming her identity as Jinx by embracing Powder again. But in episode 6, she tells Isha, "With you, it's like I have glasses, but I don't understand if they make my vision clearer or blurry." That means she is certain that there is a difference than before, but she can't tell if it's an improvement. The difference is that now Jinx is more Powder than Jinx. The unclear judgment is due to the fact that none of these identities has a future. As said, Silco's Jinx, despite resisting inside the current Jinx, doesn't have a purpose anymore. Powder, that also never died inside Jinx, is an identity stuck in the past. Jinx is not elaborating the past and building something new with awareness. With Isha, she's not restoring Powder to elaborate Jinx and build on them to develop a new identity for herself. Jinx is regressing back to the past Powder. As said, she protects Isha from traumas that, when they happened to Powder, resulted into the creation of Jinx. Now Jinx is trying to go back to that Powder who was never touched by traumas. She's trying to go back to a time in which Jinx never existed. But this is destined to fail. Powder did experience the traumas. Jinx did exist. The current Jinx has lived through both of these identities. She can't choose only one of them and delete the other, because both of them happened and contributed to make her the person she is. Trying to delete Jinx, as if she never existed, and reviving a lost version of Powder that was never traumatized, is doomed to fail. Just as, in Season 2, she fails to become only Jinx and eliminate Powder, as if she had never existed. The Powder embodied by Isha is a fantasy, an idealized, impossible, lost version of power that doesn't exist and can't exist in Jinx's future. That is why Isha has no future, and she has to go too. Isha keeps a beautiful dream alive, but eventually Jinx has to wake up from it. Later in the season, Echo will help her understand how to cope with the past and build a future. But this is another story that would sidetrack us. The last thing Isha does is something Powder already did. causing Vander's death with an Hextech weapon. Like Isha, Vander and the family he represents are fantasies of an idealized past and an impossible future. Powder and Vander don't belong to the future. They need to go back to the dead, and they go together as Isha and Warwick. The beautiful dream ended exactly like the worst nightmare it wanted to replace, because it was never a cure to it, just an echo. This is what Isha tells us about Jinx's internal journey. Similarly, Maddie reveals Kate's internal journey, as I analyzed in this video. All of my Arcane essays are in this playlist. Like this video if you think it provided an enriching perspective on Isha, and subscribe to see my next videos about Arcane. Bye!